in the United States as federal ICE agents get set to deploy to Maine. The Department of Homeland Security celebrating a win in the courts. Here you saw images of their leader on the ground, Greg Bavino, himself, who tossed a tear gas canister at protesters on a Wednesday. This as a court ruled against a lower jurisdiction's injunction that restricted the use of pepper spray. Well, for more, we can speak now. Joining us from the United States is Laura Jedeed, a journalist who, for Slate magazine, filed the paperwork, went through the work of becoming an ICE agent. Thank you for speaking with us here on France 24.
Great to be here. Thank you.
So you write in the piece for Slate that you had experience in the military, but you filed the paperwork thinking this is going to get rejected out of hand when they look at my social media.
Yes. Not only am I fairly open about how I feel about the Trump administration and ICE on social media, I've also written several articles to that effect. I've criticized ICE specifically. I've been very critical of the Trump administration generally, and I'm just not sure what they're looking for.
And yet?
And yet, they, after a 6-minute interview, they took my resume. I did not expect to hear back from them, but a week later, they did get back to me with a tentative offer, which I didn't see, wasn't expecting to receive it. I filled out none of the paperwork they sent me. I didn't accept the tentative offer. I didn't fill out my medical paperwork or sign an affidavit that I hadn't committed domestic violence or fill out any background check paperwork. And yet, 3 weeks later, I received a follow-up email asking me to take a drug test, which I did. And then I waited on results. When I didn't hear any, I went ahead and logged into the portal for the job position to find that, according to the portal, I had received a final offer. I had accepted the final offer and had been offered an entry date of September 30th, 2025. I was checking on October 3rd, so that was 3 days before I realized that ICE had, by all appearances, hired me.
And do you think this was some kind of a fluke? Or is it that easy to join ICE?
I mean, that's the big question. And unfortunately, the Department of Homeland Security is not a transparent organization and seems not inclined to investigate. It's possible this was just me. I find that very unlikely. I find it more likely that at least it affected everyone who went to this hiring event. And it could possibly go farther than that. The perfect storm of all of these things happening, it's not like this was one glitch. It said that my background check had been completed 3 days in the future. And had they actually run this background check, not only would they have found my social media presence, they presumably would have discovered that my father's side of the family is from Syria and would have had some questions about that as well. So it seems like they just didn't check at all.
And then they, when you published your story, they pushed back and you showed videos of screen grabs of, yes, I did file the paperwork.
Yes, they called it a lazy lie, which was a very lazy way to contradict the story. Of course, I had proof of this. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. I posted the video of what I saw. If there's an alternate explanation for this, I'd love to hear it, because ICE didn't respond to my request for comment, and they haven't responded to the screen grab either.
All right. So if you're not an outlier, then that means, of course, a lot of people are getting hired without the proper vetting. The training we know has been fast-tracked. Your reaction to this latest court ruling that says no, it's okay for them to use pepper spray. It's okay for them to make arrests against U.S. citizens.
So that court order would be horrifying enough by itself. Americans are exercising their First Amendment right to protest and being brutalized for it. But it is worse when you consider that the people who are deploying this pepper spray and dealing out these beatings, kidnapping people, abducting them, and sometimes even killing them, have been their vetting is at least suspect. It's unclear whether they've been checked out. It's unclear whether ICE knows who they are. We certainly don't, because of the masks.
And as a veteran, your thoughts on the fact that they are wearing these masks, that they also carry all these heavy weaponry.
It's horrible. This looks like a military occupation and in many ways functions as one. They're attempting to quash dissent, and I think it's pretty open that they're doing this. It also does remind me of some of the tactics that we used overseas to quote unquote bring freedom and democracy to people. I think America had this idea that you could bring democracy at the barrel of a gun, and that idea has come home to roost. It makes me very sad, but unfortunately, this is what happens when you create brutality overseas. Sometimes that brutality comes home.
Let's take a listen to the U.S. Border Patrol official Greg Bavino. He's been front and center. We've seen him a lot the last couple of weeks in Minneapolis. We saw him in Chicago. Here's what he had to say about these methods employed by these federal agents.
I would say that those tactics are born of necessity. What we do is legal, ethical, and moral. Everything we do every day is legal, ethical, moral, well-grounded in law. So I would impugn upon those police chiefs and anyone else, elected representatives, and you have to remember, many of these police chiefs do work for the Mayor Frys of the world, that turn over those illegal aliens.
Yeah, because there has been pushback from authorities and from some police departments. How does that bode for the weeks, months ahead?
Well, I hope the pushback continues because there is nothing legal, ethical, or moral about what is happening on the streets of America right now. Due process applies to everyone. There are ways to enforce immigration that don't involve knocking down people's doors, arresting people, disappearing them into a system that's completely opaque, and doing it with officers that haven't been vetted. I don't think that their intimidation campaign is going to work. It already isn't working. They killed someone in Minneapolis, and the response hasn't been for people to cower inside. They've come out in greater numbers. The institutions that are supposed to protect the American people have largely failed to do so, but the people themselves won't have it. And I hope that the politicians that are in charge of cities and governments in the United States will rise to the occasion and continue to help protect their people.
Why is this happening? Why are we in a situation where, like I'm reading here, this is the Secretary of State for Maine, which is, they're going to get a deployment of ICE agents, stating that she's refusing a request for confidential license plates sought by Customs and Border Protection. Why is this happening in the United States?
Well, unfortunately, the Trump administration does not have respect for the law or for our Constitution, and they continue to violate it. And it's put state governments and local governments into an awkward position where they can either do what is traditional and acquiesce to the federal government, or they can stand up for the rights of their own citizens. And in this case, our federal government does give states a lot of leeway to do that. It's precarious, and it seems to be heading us in a direction of open conflict between states and the Trump administration. I think it's worth pointing out as well that all of these really large and violent pushes have happened in states that vote for the opposition, for the Democrats. They can talk about how this is about rooting out undocumented people who have committed crimes, when I just don't think that's true. We're not seeing anything limited to those people. Whether we should be an open question, but we are seeing in the videos you're playing right now, these are United States citizens. These are protesters exercising their First Amendment to peaceably protest, and they are being brutalized for it. And I'm very thankful that people like the governor of Maine are refusing to cooperate with what, frankly, is becoming an increasingly authoritarian regime.
One final question on this, because your story, I don't know how many people are listening. I've heard it on conservative media outlets. There's, echo chambers. There are here too, by the way, in France. When you speak with fellow ex-service people from the military, is there a common ground? Is there a place where you all talk together?
So there are places on the internet where people can congregate. I know my own friends and my own people from the military, and I know that there's a lot of concern. It ranges from, well, this is no good, but it will pass, to this is a 5-alarm fire. I'm in the 5-alarm fire camp personally. But I think the big question in America right now is if and when the military is asked to step in, will they do it? And the answer is, I think, unclear. The military is traditionally very conservative, but in the sense of social conservatism and not liking taxes, not necessarily the authoritarian sense that we're seeing right now on these streets. And one hopes that the military, if they follow orders, will at least follow them poorly, because this is a travesty and not what they're supposed to be doing. They're not protecting Americans. At that point, they would be the people that we would need protection from.
As we're speaking, they're gathering for a European Union summit in Brussels, wondering if something's broken for good in transatlantic ties. Is something broken for good in the United States, inside the United States?
It feels that way. And I don't mean that I think it's hopeless. I have a lot of hope for the future, but the system that we had and the politics that we had led us to this point. In 2020, we tried to go backwards and return to a pre-Trump world with a pre-Trump politician, and ended up right back where we started and worse. Something does have to change in this country. It's certainly changing right now. The question is, in what direction will it change and where will we end up?
All right, many thanks for joining us. Laura Jedeed, your piece on your application for ICE and the follow-up can both be found on Slate. Thanks for being with us on France 24.
Thank you so much for having me.